What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 130. This is The Struggle.
Oh,
We all have the struggle bus going on, and it is in full gear. And as we move into the holidays, I thought this would be a perfect time to talk about the struggle and to have our friend and pal out there who's doing great things in the world, Mr. Adam Mock, to kind of help us all get through the struggle. Because as we all know, as mountain bikers, as athletes, as human beings, we all have a good time. But man, are we faced with some struggle, and the struggle is real. So I am excited to be able to put this show on tonight and have this guy right next to me, Mr. Joey Yates.
woo.
Joey, as always, when we start the show, who is the Whole Shot Award winner tonight?
Let me show you who it wasn't.
Oh, okay, yeah. Who it wasn't? Oh, Johnny didn't get it. Did I win? Did I win the Whole Shot?
He did get
Johnny,
630, but he didn't get it. Let's
he's
see. Tonight,
wow.
Trail Pimp, number one, 630.
630 Trail Pimp. Congratulations on the Whole Shot Award. Trail Pimp, are you on a trail as well? Because a lot of times you're on the trail when you join these, and I think that's awesome. Who else was on the 630 slot?
Oh, we had Tumor Warrior was right there. Trail
Oh yeah,
Monster.
Zach. Let's go. Let's go, Zach. Let's go, Neil. Tumor Warrior says, "What's up? I think this will be an interesting one because I think we are all struggling a bit on the inside." Yes, look at this face. I'm crying on the inside. I'm always crying on the inside. Right and Dirty says, "Yo, yo, yo, beaches." What's up? We got Arizona in the house. We got MTB Tank is in the house. We got Florida in the house. Tank, love that. Love that sticker. Man, I'm so glad more people are coming in. This is great. I see the numbers popping up. Let's just jump right into it, huh? Let's jump into the struggle. Let's bring in Adam Mock, who was so gracious enough to join us tonight and help us through whatever it is that we're struggling through because whew, we're all going through something. Here we go.
The wisest man I know.
That's so sweet.
Hello,
What a way to
Adam.
come in, Joey. That's so
It's true, though.
so
Every time
nice.
I hear you speak, I leave and I'm like, wow, he did that so easily and so perfect.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, I admire you both. Mark, I just want to say thank you. Like from the bottom of my heart. It's interesting. You and I know Joey shares this space as well too. You know, when we put on events like Ride and Shine for mental health, we do that out of a sense of we know what that is like, and we know that we're not alone in those things. When you hit me up and you're like, let's talk about struggles, I was like, oh, dude, like that like resonates with me because you're right. We're all going through it, and you can even see from the pre-chat. This is something that people want to talk about. They want to have an honest conversation about struggles.
Yeah, I see on there. There's
Kaz is
MTB
saying
Kaz.
that. Mm-hmm.
Hey, gentlemen, struggling is my middle name. You're not alone, my bro. You're not alone. Bomber
Okay.
Crew, I need this. I really, really do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Lost a cousin a few weeks back, and the struggle has been real. Damn, man.
So sorry.
We're going through some stuff. Sorry,
Loss
Fred.
is hard. Loss is hard for sure.
Loss is hard. I know when we talk about loss, maybe that's just a good place for me to jump in when it comes to loss. A lot of you have probably seen some of my posts and you're probably going like, what is happening with Mark? Is he okay? Because sometimes I'll post regular stuff and then another times I'll post something a little deeper. There's been ones where I'm like hiding under the covers and I'm kind of getting up, trying to get through the day. And this last year, I actually lost my wife through divorce. And it's almost complete. I haven't really said much about it. Pretty private, but at the same time, I want you all to know that I struggle too. It's been really difficult. It's been tough. It's been lonely. It's been confusing. And I have been leaning on a lot of friends during this time. And that's been helpful. But as we move into the holidays, I'm thinking that's just my world, my little struggle of losing somebody that I've known for so long. And I never thought I'd find myself in that place. But now I look around and I see other people are hurting too, and there's other struggles going on out there, and it makes me realize, dude, let's talk about it. Let's talk a little bit more about it. So Adam, when it comes to, you and I have been talking about my divorce now for a little bit. You've been helping me, giving me tools to get through it. For people out there that are listening in right now when it comes to loss through divorce, Can you give us some tips on how to start to navigate through that?
Yeah, that's a heavy one, Mark. And I gotta say, man, like for all of you who admire Mark, maybe you haven't met him yet, or you don't feel that close to him, but you appreciate the content he puts out. As a mountain biker, Mark is just the most congruent, sincere person you will ever meet. One of my biggest privileges in life is meeting him through this mountain biking community. What you see is exactly what you get with Mark. And so Mark, to like behind the scenes to kind of be with you, and I know Joey, you were too, and Joey's just the most solid dude for this. To see you kind of navigate divorce and a confusing divorce has been hard just as a friend, because it confuses your friends as well. I do want to say this to everybody who's listening, and then I'll answer your question, Mark. Mark just kind of came out here tonight and said like he's going through a divorce. It's almost finalized. It's been painful. It's been confusing. And when you see Mark, I think it's our natural tendency as individuals and our curiosity to want to know specifics and to want to know answers to what's going on. And the best thing you can do if you want to be there for a friend is just to listen. And kind of put your curiosity aside in terms of what you need from it. It's what your friend needs from it. And what Mark might need right now as he's going through this is just to share what he's comfortable sharing. And so one of the best things you can do is simply just check in with him in terms of how are you feeling today? Not necessarily what happened. Because trust me, I know Mark, and if Mark wants to tell you what happened, he's going to tell you what happened. You will.
True. Yes.
Yes. But if he's not feeling it that day, what he simply might need is, how are you? Just the check-in. And Mark is smart enough to understand that what we're implying with that, right? Like, Mark, how are you doing? I know you talked about you're going through this divorce right now. Are you okay? Is there anything you need? That's like the best thing we can do in terms of support. But try and relinquish this idea of needing answers for yourself. You're not the one going through it. Oh, look at this. This is what Apple does now. These new things, like, for those of you who are listening, you don't know what just happened, but if you're watching, I just got a thumbs up because the new iOS is like watching my hand gestures. But that's the best thing you can do right now is something like that. Mark just shared something that's incredibly painful and real. And so what we need as friends, or as maybe people who just admire him, is to use empathy. Empathy is really misunderstood because empathy doesn't equal agreement. A lot of people think, well, if I have to empathize, then I have to agree with what they're going through. And you don't have to. But empathy is simply this idea of, can you step into Mark's shoes and understand what it's like to be Mark during this? Not you during this in Mark's shoes. That would be sympathy. But empathy is the ability to kind of articulate to Mark your understanding of what he's going through, which means that you have to dig into something within yourself that understands loss, confusion, grief, possibly betrayal. And those weren't his words. I'm putting that out there for anybody who's going through like a breakup or something, and has, relational equity in it. You have to tap into something within yourself. So when Mark shares with you, or he shares openly like this, the best thing you can do is empathize and paraphrase it back and say, Mark, that's got to be very hard. You've been married. And Mark, how long were you married? You were married over 2 decades, right?
Yeah. Well, I met her in 2000, and we've been together ever since. But we were married for over 16 years. This would have been number 17 coming up.
Wow. So
Yeah.
17 years married, over 2 decades together. So there's
Mhm.
confusion in that. And these things don't heal overnight. And so empathy is the best thing you can do. And let me just caution all of you, with the best of intent. One of the biggest mistakes I see everybody making with really good intentions is to say, at least. Well, Mark, at least, you're a really great guy and you got a great personality. It's like, Mark knows what his at least are. He's not like oblivious to his at least. When we say that, what we're doing is we're correcting his emotional perspective when he says it's confusing, or I get scared, or I get lonely sometimes. Empathy says, be lonely, be scared, be confused right now. But to answer your question, Mark, when it comes to loss of any kind, grief is involved in that. There's just this grieving. I'm sure you're grieving right now, and we've talked, privately on things. There's this wonderful saying that grief is love looking for a home. And I really love this saying because it puts some things in perspective. Because if you think about that, what it's saying is, before the loss, Either somebody left you, a relationship has ended, or maybe somebody has passed away. And in the chat, the Bomber Crew shared, they just lost their cousin. Before that loss happens, this beautiful energy of love, of affection, of like admiration or adoration, it has a place to land. It has a place to like be received. And that's wonderful because you're like, I got this energy I want to give out, and I want to give it specifically to you. Let me show you and tell you how much I care about you. And then that person's gone, but that energy continues to palpitate, to exude, and to move forth. But that energy doesn't have a landing pad anymore. And
Yes,
that's what
totally.
leaves us feeling confused, right? So grief is love looking for a home. This energy of love is simply looking for a place to land right now. So I would just tell people that, if you're going through loss, it's a natural part of the grieving process to feel a sense of confusion, to feel a sense of isolation or being alone or being in the woods, being like, what do I do with these challenging emotions right now? Because my love is still exuding. That hasn't stopped from me. I'm still here. But the person is no longer in my life. They've either passed away or they've left, even out of my control. But I still want to be me, and I want to love. And so grief is love looking for a home. And that's why we all can feel very challenged and confused by that.
Wow, Adam, that's powerful stuff. What do we do for that grief, that love that's looking for a home until we have a home for it? What are some healthy things we can do to put that love on something else? Or do we
It's a
even
great
do that?
question. It's a great question. Well, listen, there's a general saying, time heals all wounds. I hate this saying so much.
Me too.
Because well, Mark, has anyone told you that at all? Like while you're going, time heals all wounds.
Time and space. Like sometimes I think they don't know what to do. And I'm guilty of it too. Like, hey, time
Yeah.
and space will take care of everything. And I'm sure the person on their side's like, you know what? Fuck off.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's what you want to say. The
Right.
best thing you could do is understand this. It's not that time heals all wounds. It's time and distance is what it needs.
Mm.
Sometimes you actually need to remove yourself from the proximity of things that remind you of the person, or your brain can't function. Your brain is really awesome, but it's still really primitive because the brain's designed to do two things. It's designed to keep us safe and to make sense of things. The unfortunate part of this design to keep us safe and to make sense of things is the primitive functioning of our brain. Because the brain, when there are gaps of information, they've done studies of this, they've done neurological studies of this. When we have gaps in information, like, why did the person leave me? Why did this happen? I thought everything was great. We fill the gaps in with negative stories.
Preach it, dude.
That's normal.
For
Yes.
sure.
And the negative stories might be about us. Did I do something? Was it the way I looked, the way I aged?
Yeah.
Did the person die because did I miss a sign? I could have stepped in and helped them. Maybe they'd be here longer. We fill it in with negative stories because on this primitive end, our brain needs to know if we have to fight or flight, if we need to like put our hands up and really defend something, or if we need to flee. And a lot of people don't realize, some of them do. There's a third part, which is freeze. Sometimes when the physiological stuff takes over, the biochemistry, like we don't know what to do. So we become frozen. And then there's this fourth part, which is to fawn. So if a relationship has ended, let's take Mark, you as an example, some people might fawn and go after that person, go, oh, I'm so sorry. It was all me. I will never do that again. Please, let's get back together. I can't live without you. And these are coping mechanisms because the brain is designed to keep us safe and to make sense of things. And if we can get them back, then we have full control, and it makes sense. It was us, not them. And what we really need is time and distance. And we need a little bit of reality testing, which is part of emotional intelligence, to say, maybe they left because I wasn't right for them anymore. And do I want to be with somebody who's going to view me as not right for them anymore, no matter how much time I've put in there? Or maybe they passed away, which is unfortunate. And the grief is going to be very, very real, but we have no control over that anymore. And so we have to wrestle with these natural fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses and just kind of come to the idea of, accepting things. It's weird because in this culture, there's toxic positivity, and the goal is not always to feel better or to feel good. Let's put it that way. The initial goal is not always to feel good, but we are in a culture that wants us to feel good out of our own discomfort with vulnerability. And so what that leads to is what's called toxic positivity, right? And in toxic positivity, people say things to you. Maybe they've said it to you, Mark, like, oh, Mark, it'll be okay. I know it sucks now, but it'll be fine. Right?
Yeah.
But fortune tellers, we don't see the future. And the truth is, we absolutely don't know that it's going to be fine all the time. We don't know that. It would be better to say, I don't know what's coming. I'm just glad you told me.
Oh, Apple's giving you a thumbs up.
I know
on
Apple's giving me like the double thumbs on that, right? Like a sign. But do you
Yeah.
get what I'm saying? Like it would almost be better. Mark, how would that feel for you, for someone who exists in the space of your pain and not tell you, it'll be fine, Mark, where you feel dismissed because you still feel like shit, right?
Yeah.
But
It'd
someone
feel
goes,
awful,
hey,
unheard.
Mark,
Yeah.
I know it sucks. I don't know what's going to happen, man. But what I can tell you with 100% certainty is I'm here for you.
Just to sit in the mud with somebody and
Right?
allow them that space to feel, right?
Yeah, totally. It's interesting. Like toxic positivity. Listen, people, I don't care if you're watching this or listening to this. This is a real truth. If you lie to yourself, everything's going to be fine. I just know it. And it's not fine. And then you have another struggle. Everything's going to be fine. I just know it. And it's not fine. If you lie to yourself, how can you ever trust yourself? You can't, right? And as painful as it is, and people say this to me all the time, Adam, I don't want to think about that right now, but you better think about it because it might not go your way. And this is a hard pill to swallow. It may get worse before it gets better, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes the answer isn't, it'll all be okay. Sometimes you have to ask, well, what if it isn't okay? And you have to explore that answer because here's the truth. That can actually give you a great sense of control over what you're struggling with and a challenge. Because while your brain is ideating the what ifs it doesn't go okay, it gains a sense of control. It starts to figure out how to keep you safe and how to make sense of that scenario. And that's exactly what you want to do.
So having that as an exercise is helpful by looking through the future and saying like, well, let's just see, let's tease this out. If this happens, then what happens?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got
Yeah.
it. Because even in that scenario where you were just saying, Mark, how would you feel if somebody said everything's going to be okay, and sit in the mud? My knee-jerk reaction was like, yeah, everything's going to be fine. Like you could do
Yeah.
this. You got this. Like
You're an
that's where my
optimist.
brain
You're a
wants to
great
go.
optimist. Yeah.
Oh, but it's definitely not helpful. And something that you told me before that I think is great, and I would love to share it here, is that you had said whenever you have a friend that's going through some struggle and you really want to be there for them, it's imperative to be interested, not interesting.
Yeah, man.
I love
Preach it,
that.
Mark.
I love
That's
that.
so good. Listen, everybody. Our knee-jerk reaction is to solve things. How do we possibly know how to solve every struggle and challenge that life is going to throw at us? We don't. A lot of leaders I work with, some leadership coaching specialists, they think like, oh, I have a title, so my number one role is to understand and know everything right now for my team. And it's like, that's not your role. Your role is to make good decisions based on the information you get from a qualified team. That's your role as a leader, right? So your role as a friend is not to sit there and solve somebody else's pain. It's to appreciate that they would even open up to you to begin with. And then to get very curious and become interested and not interesting, like Mark said, and not go, oh, well, that's like what happened to me. When my father passed away, I had a friend, and I remember this actually really, really hurt me. My father had passed away. He had passed away like 3 days before this call with my friend. And I was telling him, he was a childhood friend. Hey, my dad died. And that's all I said. I said, my dad died. I might have said, it sucks, man. Like I'm confused. I'm kind of fucked up. And he goes, oh, that's like when my dad died, which was like 15 years before. And instantly he became interesting and just started telling me his story about his dad. I wasn't ready for that yet. I fully acknowledge his father died and that was painful. Mine was 3 days ago. And I really just wanted to process. And I wanted somebody who was interested in where I was in that moment and wasn't trying to be interesting with their own story of things. That's what we call an empathetic miss. He wasn't empathizing. He was emotionally correcting me by trying to sway it and be like, oh, I get it. I understand you, Adam, because it happened to me. And it's like, whether you understand me or not, I just kind of want to talk, man. Like I need a safe psychological space to process this.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and not be corrected or be fixed. Like
Mhm.
Johnny's thing down there. My therapist always says she can't fix me. I can just guide you.
That's so that's so true. That's even
It's
what coaching is. Coaching is not like I can't do it for you. It's like, what do you want? You have the answers. What do you want?
yeah, exactly. What did we do? Okay, so let's talk about, and thank you, Adam, for that's huge.
Mhm.
Be interested, not
Not
interesting.
interesting. Right. Yeah.
You're holding space for the person that you care about
Yeah.
to allow them the opportunity to share, and then you just listen.
Mhm.
And for me, put down my tools. I'm not a fixer. I can't fix. All I can
You
do is
are
be there.
you're a fixer at heart. You're a fixer at heart. Your greatest desire is to want to help people, Mark, and that's what I love about you.
It's good and bad, right? It's good for me, but bad for the other people. They're like, "Come on, just let me tell my story."
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's I'm gonna go to the chat here in a second, you guys. Thank you
Please.
so much for all of
Yeah,
them coming through.
Yeah, I love
the,
what's coming
the
through in the
chat's
chat.
been amazing tonight, but I didn't want to go away from what I wanted everyone just to pay attention to Adam because that was so wise and everything he was speaking was just great. And I didn't want to take away from it, but the chat's been great tonight too.
Let's
Yeah,
pop
you
some
guys are
chat
great.
up in here. Let's pop some chat
We're
and
gonna we're gonna
include
get that.
your crew in here.
All right, here we go. I see this one right here. Gem X is saying exactly. Most people are extremely unempathetic and wanting to speak about their own shit. Yeah,
Uh,
it's true, just like you said.
listen, Gem X, everybody listening, here's all you have to do to employ empathy. Empathy is so powerful, the FBI uses it in hostage negotiations. They call it tactical empathy. They
Wow.
empathize with the terrorists and the people who have taken the hostages. And that's like, what? Why would they do that? Because empathy doesn't equal agreement. And all you have to do to empathize is genuinely listen, be interested, as Mark said, and paraphrase somebody's position back to them. All you do is this. So, like for Mark, let's use a real life example. So, Mark, you're saying you didn't want this divorce. It kind of came out of nowhere. You had been together for 16, 17 years, married together longer than that, over 2 decades. And there are times you feel really, really lonely and confused by it. And those are things that still kind of wreck your mind. And those are things that are hard to get through.
Dude, nailed it. Yep.
Okay.
The nights suck and the mornings suck.
So you see, for those of you listening, you can hear Mark say nailed it. If you're watching, you see Mark nod his head. That's called an alignment agreement. And that means that Mark and I are aligned, and Mark is the one who gets to tell me I understand. I don't get to say I understand. I don't get to go, Mark, I understand, and then leave it at that. I don't know that. It hasn't been validated, it hasn't been verified. Mark has to be the one to tell me that I understand. The only way he can do that is if I employ empathy and I paraphrase his position back to him.
Mm, damn. That's good. That's really good.
Yeah. What else we got from the chat? That was a good one.
Man, let's get on up here. We got a $5 super sticker coming in here from Trail
Ooh,
Monster. He
Trail
says,
Monster.
yeah, Neil in Arizona. Always good to see you, brother. He says, Adam, do you ever get into the serenity prayer with people, even the secular version, when they have some serious struggles?
Yes.
Helps me at least, he says.
It helps a lot of people, Trail Monster. For those of you who don't know, the Serenity Prayer is that, Lord, help me to accept the things I can't change. I don't remember this verbatim, but you all have heard the version of that, even the secular version, and something like the power to change what I can kind of thing. I think the Serenity Prayer is wonderful. It's what we call a mantra. And it does remind you that there are certain things within your control. And that's what you have to do when you have struggles. You have to solutions start with you. Anybody who's listening, solutions start with you. We're in a culture that is waiting for the world to change, and you see this in people around you, and it might be you. We say things like, well, if only they would, then I could. We want everybody else to do the shit and the heavy lifting before we change stuff. But solutions start with you, so you have to do an honest examination of yourself. And that serenity prayer is beautiful because it helps you remember what is within your control. Listen, people, there's only 3 things within your control: what you think, what you say, and what you do. And Marty is in there. Control your controllables: what you think, what you say, and what you do. Now, listen, what you think is the first part of that. What you think affects how you feel. That affects your behavior. I work with some of the highest achieving people. I work with Olympians and gold medalists and world champions. And what you think affects how you feel, and that affects your behavior. So people ask me, well, Adam, I feel like shit. Okay. And they're like, well, how do I change how I feel? Well, what are you thinking? What are you thinking that's causing you to feel like that? And in Mark's case, or in some of your cases, it's, well, I should have done something, or I had more control than I did, or this should make sense to me. And it's like, well, If that's not working for you, maybe we need to change the narrative in your mind without toxic positivity and get an honest narrative or an honest story written in your mind so that what you think changes how you feel and that changes your behavior moving forward.
Damn. Control the controllables. Those three
Yeah,
things.
Marty preaching it. Good job, Marty.
Damn, Marty. We have Tony the Outsiders in the chat. What's up, Tone? Good
I
to
love
see you.
Tony. I
And
love
he
Tony.
touches upon a really good one because I feel like we all do this. And whatever we're going through, whatever struggle we're going through, he says, for me, I always discount my problems. Like they aren't bad enough to feel bad, but they're relative to my life, and that's important to me.
Mark, you and I were just talking about this tonight.
Yep.
Thank you, Tony. Let me say two things. First of all, I love giving Tony his flowers. Tony's one of my favorite people, just like Mark and Joey, that I've gotten to meet in the mountain biking community. If you're a fan of The Outsider and you get to know him, that's the guy. And he's an honest dude, and he's a lot of fun to be around.
Lots of
He's
fun.
a lot of fun. And he's a
Wow.
great heart, and he's got a wicked sense of humor, man. Like
Wicked smart too.
wicked smart. Yeah, because he is from the East Coast. He's from the East Coast. He's up there from Connecticut. I love The Outsider. So I just want to, Tony, I'm giving you your flowers. You can choose to water them or not. But what I love about what Tony said is this is something that happens to a lot of people. So we are in this comparison culture. And it doesn't help with social media because we flip on our social media algorithms and the filters are like, look at how much greater everybody's life is compared to yours. So Mark sits there and talks about a divorce, or the Bomber Crew talks about a death and a loss. And then we sit there and we wake up with anxiety and depression and we're scared to go about our day. And we go, but my feelings are less than Mark's or the Bomber Crew's. And then we dismiss it. And that's what's called bottling. Listen, people, your struggles are your struggles, and they are relative. They are relatively proportionate to just who you are as an individual. No one has a right to tell you that your struggle is diminished or less than somebody else's, because we have a culture that says death and divorce are the really big ones. So anything that you would perceive as falling under that doesn't require a lot, or you really shouldn't be rocked by that. That's ridiculous. We are all trying to navigate this world to a degree where when we experience something for the first, second, third, maybe even fifth time, we're just getting our reps in. And it confuses us when the struggles happen, the challenges happen, and we feel that weight. And when that weight presses on us, it gets very dark because it blocks out the light and the sun. And we feel very alone in that moment. And let me just tell you, whatever you're struggling with, I don't care what the struggle is, it's valid. You're struggling, and that's the first thing that's going to help you through it, is to admit that it is a struggle for you. It might not be for other people, but it is a struggle for you, and that's okay. And that's real.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, Tony. Thanks for putting that out there, man.
That was a good one. Yeah, because if you bottle that up, that stuff is going to come out somewhere else in the form of
comes out in people
anxiety,
you care about the
illness,
most. Exactly.
right?
Yeah, Mark, you got that right. Yeah.
temper, all that stuff. Let's go with MTBTNA out of Miami. Lauren says, don't fill the hole in the heart. Let it be and honor it. The person earned that piece of your heart. You can always grow around that missing piece and be whole in a new way.
Oh, MTBTNA bringing some knowledge. I like that. You know what's interesting? I work with clients. This is called there's something called the duality of nature that we all have. We all have self-defeating behaviors and we have self-enhancing behaviors. And those things can coexist in who we are as people, self-defeating and self-enhancing behaviors. The same is true of our emotions. We can have certain emotions that feel like they are anti, or there's a dichotomy between the two, but they can actually coexist. And so an example of this is, I had a client who really wanted a promotion to a different department in the organization they were working, and they didn't get it. And all the signs were pointing that they would get it. So they were really excited about it. They had every right to be excited about it. They didn't get that. They got a promotion. They didn't get the one they wanted. And so I said, what are you feeling? Because I need to get to what they were thinking, right? And they said, well, I feel disappointed because I didn't get what I wanted. And then they said sheepishly, but I also feel grateful. You know, I guess I should feel grateful. And I said, do you feel grateful? And they said, yeah, actually I do. I feel grateful that I got a promotion, but I don't know, because I also feel disappointed that I didn't get the one I want. And I simply said, well, can't they both coexist?
Can
and
they?
I said, yeah, they can. I can be grateful and disappointed at the same time. We can love and have anger at the same time. How many of us who are in partnerships have gotten in a full blowout with our partner and we know we still love them, but we're angry with them too? And a lot of times we think like these emotions have to be singular. I love that Lauren pointed out this idea of like, you have to fill this hole in your heart, like you can build around it. When it comes to past relationships, I know, Mark, you and I have talked about this on things. It doesn't mean because there's a divorce, your entire relationship was worthless. There's great memories and great experiences and great love and great connection in that. And that can coexist with your feelings of disappointment and confusion and hurt right now.
Yeah, good point. That's good. Yeah, I did feel that when I was, as everyone who has a phone nowadays, your pictures come up out of nowhere. It says, "On this day, remember," and then it'll
Yeah.
pop up a
Oh,
picture, and there's
man.
all those pictures from my past, and I'm like, do I keep those? Do I delete those? Do I put them in a
Yeah.
file? But that helps me compartmentalize. That was me then. That wasn't me today. That was me then. And boy, was I happy. And boy, were we here and we were doing that. And boy, that was a good
Mhm.
time. But
Yeah.
the today's market is different. But I can look back on that with fondness. And I think as more time and space goes by, I'll be able to appreciate the history without the jabs, the little
I
jabs,
agree. Well, Mark, here you have some needs. Everyone who's listening, listen. Needs are really important. Some of you may know Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And you have like physiological needs at the beginning, like we all need to eat, we all need to sleep, we have to have safety, a roof over our heads, and stuff. When those needs are met, we kind of move up the ladder of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I bring this up to just share with you that needs, or especially unmet needs, will derail you. They're derailers. Because until that need is met, it's kind of like the Snickers commercial, honestly, where they're like, "You're not yourself when you're hungry," right? And then like eat the Snickers bar, and then like they turn back into themselves. When you're grieving, you have a need to grieve, and you have a need for time, and you have a need for to make sense of things, and you have a need for compassion and empathy and hugs and people to just listen to you. And if those needs get unmet, they get bottled. And you start to convince yourself, like, well, I don't need this. So much time has gone on. I should be over this. And maybe even you have someone around you who maybe means well, and they tell you something stupid like, well, you should be over this by now, right? Just get over it, move on. And like that's horrible advice, by the way.
yeah. Take
Unmet
all that
needs are
energy and
derailers.
send it.
Exactly. Unmet needs are derailers. And so when we're like, why am I not myself? We really need to kind of do an inventory and say things like, what needs aren't being met that I need right now? And that's when you start to really understand who your close friends are, your close
Mm,
connections are, to be able to go to and go, I just feel better for talking about it. Well, your need got met. You got seen in in that moment.
yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's even just a hug from,
Oh my
from
gosh, hugs are needed. I think there's a new study out saying you need 8 hugs a day.
I saw that. I
Yeah.
saw that study.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can't paraphrase it right now off the top of the head, but exactly. That was the whole point. You need hugs and you actually
Mhm.
crave more hugs than you think you do.
Uh-huh. I know. Even the people who are like, I'm not a hugger, it's just armor. Most of those people, it's just armor. And
Yeah.
I'm not advocating go up and hug somebody who doesn't want to hug. Like, don't do that. Right. But I'm just kind of saying, like, my experience has been even people who say they're not huggers, they need something, even if it's an emotional hug, some type of empathetic response that says you see them is really what they need.
I
Adam,
don't
when
know.
it
If
yeah.
I'm at 6 hugs and it's getting close to the end of the day, I'm grabbing 2 random strangers, I guess.
Dude, have you all seen those videos on Instagram? How powerful they are, where somebody just blindfolds themselves and they just hold a sign up because that way it can stay
Oh,
anonymous. And
yes.
they right, and they
Yeah.
say, "Hey, if you've been hurt or you're struggling and you need a hug," and they might have like flowers on the ground too. They'd be like,
Yeah.
"Take a flower and give me a hug." And people don't come in for a weak embrace if you watch those things. Like watch them very closely. Like people come in like it is oxygen, like it is water in a desert, that they didn't have this moment or they didn't feel comfortable enough with their network to take the thing that they needed more than anything else, and they just want to hug.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to hug Mark now.
Hugs,
Come
hugs,
on.
hugs are great. Hugs are great. Adam, what do we do about when you have those toxic thoughts that come in after a loss? We touched on it a little bit earlier.
Mhm.
Let's say the bomber crew, they lost a cousin. Is there something I could have identified, something I could have done? Like, what could I have controlled to maybe have mitigated that happening? Or in a loss, what could I have done different? What could I have fixed of myself? Am I not deserving of love? Am I not deserving to be with somebody? Is my fate to be alone? If those toxic thoughts come in, what's the best way to handle it? Especially if you don't have a community to talk to.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Mark, you're asking the deep set. We're going deep, people. We're
Oh,
not at the tip
man.
of the iceberg anymore. So I
Bring
love
the
this.
scuba gear. I brought my scuba gear.
Let's
Let's go.
The scuba gear is hooch. Mark just held up some whiskey. Or is that whiskey or rum, Mark? What you got there?
This is some whiskey, and boy is it strong.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to answer your question in a minute, Mark. I'm glad you have whiskey though, because Marty's saying, is a fist bump as good as a hug? Some people might think this is a joke, but it's not. Some people are uncomfortable, maybe like USO Cal saying, not a hunger, high fives all day. Respect people's boundaries. What they want more than anything else is connection. That's what a hug represents, is a sense of connection. And it's interesting because there's been studies on communication, and a lot of people are like, I don't want to say the wrong thing to somebody. But only 7% of communication are the words you say. 93% is nonverbal. 55% of communication is body language. 38% is your tone of voice. 7% are the actual words you say.
Only
So it
7.
really,
Wow.
yeah, 7%. Isn't that crazy? 93% of communication is nonverbal. To give an example of this, Mark, for those who can see me, like if I were to just sit here and cross my arms and furrow my brow and I don't say anything.
Yeah, you look really interested.
It doesn't matter what language, right? It doesn't matter what language I speak. Everyone would go, Adam's at least frustrated or pissed. If I start throwing in some tones like, right? Everyone knows, okay, Adam's really perturbed right now. It's not the words. So it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So for like Marty or USO Cal, if they're asking about fist bumps or high fives, respect that. But really what they all they want is for someone to go, I don't know what to say. I'm just really glad you told me. And you give them a high five and you go, I'll be here for you. Or you give them a fist bump and you go, thank you for sharing that with me. And I'm here for whenever you need to talk. That's how easy it is. Like you don't even have to solve it for somebody. That's literally like the emotional hug that they would need on those things.
When someone says, hold space for me, or all I need you to do is hold space, that's really all we're doing, is just sitting with them.
Yes, 100%. We're just sitting with them. We're not solving it. This is the thing we all do. Here's the, if we're going to be really honest, Dr. David Viscott says, if you lived honestly, your life would heal itself. This is a really powerful quote, and it's a very polarizing quote when you sit with it for a while. A lot of times when we say to somebody, oh, it'll be fine, or, oh, you'll get over it, there'll be somebody better for you, Mark, like anything like that, that's not for Mark. That's for us. That's to help our discomfort with what Mark is going through. That's what that is. If we're being honest, because if we really understood Mark's not looking for solutions right now. What Mark is telling us is this fucking sucks. You know, like,
yeah,
this sucks. A year before this, I wouldn't have thought this was happening. Here it is a year later, and I'm going through it. And I'm a public figure in the MTB community. How do I navigate this? I have a lot of things to process. So talk about the struggle is real. Like I have a lot of things going on, you know, right now on this. And Mark, you know, you asked me a question with the Bomber Crew when it comes to loss, you know, or these struggles. I want to share with you what optimistic people do, because they have 3 traits that are really, really powerful. And you kind of started touching on some of them. But I would say lean towards optimism on this. And what optimism is this? Optimism, people who know optimism don't say things like, well, I'm an optimist, but I'm a realist. This drives me crazy. It's like, you don't understand what optimism is. Because optimism is incredibly real. It understands what is. So optimism knows somebody passed away and it sucks. Optimism knows somebody has left you and it sucks. But here are the 3 traits that optimistic people have. Optimistic people view things, challenges, setbacks, struggles as temporary and not permanent. Temporary and not permanent. Now, I know when it comes to death, that's permanent. But what they're saying is temporary is the magnitude of the grief you have right now. It might not fully heal. You're going to have a scar that's recognized, and you're going to look through pictures and cry, but the feeling will evolve. And what's temporary and not permanent is, Mark, your relationship has ended. Maybe you end up with somebody else. Maybe you don't. But the depth of grief you feel and the depth of pain you feel can evolve. it can start to minimize a little bit, where you can talk about it maybe without choking up. You can share it with your kids and with friends without a sense of embarrassment that maybe we have self-imposed because we didn't make the decision and we've convinced ourselves it was something with us. But they view things as temporary, not permanent. The second trait that optimistic people have is they view challenges, setbacks, struggles as situational and not pervasive. A good example of this, because people are like, what do those words, mean, is like, you lost your job because the economy is really taxing right now. And so they had to downsize. Well, an optimistic person says, well, I lost my job because of product of the situation. It was the economy and they had to downsize. Pervasive is more pessimistic. Pervasive is, I'm unemployable. I have a dark cloud over me. Nobody will ever hire me again. And if they do, I won't last more than 3 months. Okay. Situational and not pervasive. Mark, things that you and I have talked about are products of a situation. And this is the case with other people, right? Even if somebody dies, it's not like everybody, well, I mean, everybody inevitably dies. We know that, right? But if people led an unhealthy lifestyle, for an example, we're not that surprised if they pass away young, as an example. And I know that's hard to say. I'm not trying to not be compassionate or empathetic about that. But it's a product of the lifestyle. It was a product of the situation. It's not that everybody around you is all of a sudden going to, die at a young age, as an example. Okay.
Right.
And the last trait they have is optimistic people don't personalize things. And this is tough because sometimes people try and make it personal. Like they'll call you names and they'll bully you and they'll try and belittle you, put you under their thumb and make you feel small. But you're at full choice not to receive that the way it's intended. It's optimistic people don't personalize things. They don't go, it's because of me this is happening. And I think there's a time and place to do a self-evaluation and raise your self-awareness and say, maybe I was too controlling, too stern, too detached in my relationship, and that's why it ended. And then you get to grow from that. But optimistic people don't personalize it. So they view challenges and setbacks as temporary, not permanent, situational, not pervasive, and they don't personalize things. So when it comes to loss, some of those traits may help people navigate through the sense of loss. And listen, it doesn't fix itself overnight. You don't wake up tomorrow and go, I'm going to employ those traits and I feel 100% better tomorrow. No, this may take 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. It may take 5 years, depending on how much equity was involved in the loss to begin with, before you start to go, I never thought I would experience joy again.
Man. For those pervasive feelings, I mean, I feel like those are the knee-jerk reactions that we have as human beings to, like, a defense mechanism, maybe, so to speak. Like, I lost the relationship because I'm meant to be alone. I lost this job because I won't last in any job.
Yeah.
What's the best way to try to turn that thought, that theme in the head? Is there something to tell yourself?
Yeah, there's a whole technique called narrative self-coaching. Dr. David Drake is the founder of narrative self-coaching. I had the privilege of sitting in a 2-month workshop with Dr. Drake to learn this. In a nutshell, you just examine the thoughts that you know are negative. You have to be very honest about this because, again, David Viscott says if you lived honestly, your life would heal itself. So you have to examine the thoughts in your head and you have to say, are these thoughts like productive or destructive for me? And by the way, grief is not a destructive thought. It can be very productive. You have to navigate those things, and self-examination can be productive. You don't want to ruminate there forever. So you take a negative narrative about things, and maybe you say stuff like, I'm a piece of shit. Nobody wants to date me anymore. I'm unattractive. I'm unemployable. I'm not a great leader. I'll never make the money I want to make. Well, if you write those stories in your head, what you think affects how you feel, and that affects your behavior. So think about that. You start to think small, you feel small, you feel inadequate, you have imposter syndrome, you feel undesirable, unattractive, and that affects your behavior. Why should I go to the gym? What would it matter? Why should I improve and read leadership books and improve my standing at the job that I'm in? Why should I pursue the person that I want? Because they're just going to view me as somebody that's not in their league. So you
It's not
rewrite the
gonna work
thought.
anyways, right?
Exactly. So what you
Jeez,
have to
wow.
do is you have to explore some other opportunities. You start to ask yourself, or you get a qualified professional like a coach like myself or a therapist or a counselor to say, well, what would it look like if those things weren't true? What would it look like to think the antithesis of the narrative you're writing? And people go, you mean to think I am attractive? That I could be a good leader, that I could be effective in my job, that I'm making a difference in my community, that I'm worth, that I have value to my friends? And the therapist, coach, or counselor says, that's exactly what I'm saying. Explore that. What does that feel like? And they start to go, it feels good. And they explore all those things. And then they say to them, okay, I don't want to overwhelm you. What matters the most to you? If you were to change one story or two stories in your head, what matters the most to you? Well, I want to feel more attractive. Okay. So let's write the story out. You start to feel more attractive. And what else matters to you? Well, I want to feel like I will have a meaningful relationship again. Great. Let's write that out. You will have a meaningful relationship again, not toxic positivity, but you're going to put the work in to do this. And then they start to live it out and they start to see if it's sustainable. And if it is sustainable, because they're writing a new story in their head, they start what they think affects how they feel and affects their behavior. So they think, I can be more attractive. I feel better. What do I want to do? I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to sustain my thought. I'm going to ruminate on the better things. I'm going to read the leadership books. I'm going to text my friends. I'm going to ask them out. I'm going to engage in my connections more. And then their life starts to change. But it takes 6 months on average for meaningful change. And most people aren't willing to do the work. They honestly would rather play the victim in things. I'm not telling everybody to get over it in a day. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. I'm saying you got to feel through the weight and the darkness of the struggle, but you have to be real, the optimistic traits that this is temporary and not permanent. These things can evolve, but they take work. And the work sucks at first. It's painful and it's awkward and it's clunky, but you stick with it and it gets better.
Man. Control what you can. Your thoughts become your words become your actions become who you are.
Exactly.
That is something you can control. And that's definitely not easy. But look at all of us in the mountain bike world. When you look at certain trails or features, like I never thought I'd be able to do that. But then you have to, that's an example of employing that. I think I can. I'm going to get the words out there that I could do it. And then you get the validation from your friends. Yeah, I think your skill set, this is possible. And then that feature is way behind you with the big smile.
Right. And even if you mess up, let's say you fuck up on the feature the first time, or you mess up and you're awkward on the first date after you've been through a breakup or a divorce or something, right?
Is this the part where we hug? No.
Here's the part where we hug.
No?
Right. We hug, kiss, good handshake. What do I do?
Right? Oh, we're just starting. This is a movie.
And then you know what? You go home and you have a choice, don't you? You have a choice to go, I'm totally inadequate and nobody's going to find me attractive. Or you have a choice to go home and laugh at yourself and go, that's exactly how many first dates go. They're awkward. There's so much we don't know about one another. And I'm glad we got that out of the way. And I'm going to text them later and say, I'm so sorry that was awkward. Everything in me, honestly, just wanted to give you a kiss at the end of the night, but I want to respect your boundaries. And then we start to heal.
I got to write that down. I'm nowhere near the date phase, but I got to write that down for later.
Robert is saying listening to Adam cuss is unnatural. That's so funny to me because I'm very liberal in my language. I just regulate. So everyone thinks I'm very wholesome on my videos.
I needed earmuffs tonight.
Oh, Joey, your halo was blinding.
Yeah. Hey, I want to tell you guys, you know what's really interesting that holds people back? Brene Brown did a survey. This is just mind-blowing. Did a survey, 15,000 people. Asked 15,000 people, on average, how many emotions do you experience during the day? And what do you think they said? Joey, Mark, what do you think they said? On average, how many emotions do people experience during a day based on those 15,000 people who were surveyed?
Dude, based on who knows what they're going through in their life right there. Were they male and female? Doesn't matter.
It was a broad survey. It was a broad survey.
It's going to be a lot. I'm going to say
Isaiah's saying 40, Octodad saying 10.
I'm going to say it's in the hundreds or even thousands.
Hundreds of thousands emotions a day. Okay, MTB Q&A saying 3. Joey, what do you think?
I'm just going with 100.
100. Oh boy. Okay.
Am I the crazy one? I'm out there.
I'm giving bonus points to Johnny U of MTB Q&A. Average amount of emotions people experience during the day are 3.
What?
Yes, and here's what's crazy
I'm
about
in the hundreds. Oh
yes.
man, no wonder why I'm single.
Well, Mark, you're kind of right in a way. Most people experience the emotions of happy, sad, and angry.
Oh,
so play this out. Play this out though. You're facing a struggle or challenge, and you go, "I know I'm not happy." What are your options left then? I'm either sad or angry, right? But do you know, at a minimum, this is called emotional literacy. At a minimum, we should experience about 30 emotions a day.
Wow.
And we need emotional literacy, meaning we need to be able to go, well, I'm not angry. I'm frustrated. I'm disappointed. I'm not sad right now. I'm actually just bored, is what it is. I'm not happy. I'm elated. I'm ecstatic. I'm amused, is what it is. And I know some people sometimes add a fourth one. They add fear in there. And I think this can be a dangerous thing because unless somebody's really aware and you've had a professional unpack it with you, you can use those as guides, being like, well, if you're going to land on angry, let's make sure that anger is the emotion that you're feeling. And they would dig. But if you're doing this kind of on your own, it leaves you feeling without words or without a sense of emotion on things. And so it's important to know that our spectrum of emotions vary. We're not always happy, sad, or angry. And by the way, those emotions aren't good or bad either. A lot of people think they're good or bad, and they're not. People think like happiness is an awesome emotion. Like that's such a good emotion to be happy. But some people feel uncomfortably exposed when they're happy or they experience joy. So it becomes very difficult for them to smile with their teeth because they're self-conscious of how they look, or they're worried that if they're too happy about how something is going, they had a date and it went really well. Well, what if they don't like them a few days after the date? They're going to feel embarrassed for even being happy in the first place. So happiness can be a challenging emotion. And people think anger is a really bad emotion, but it's not, because sometimes you have every right to be angry and pissed off about something. And it leads to justice because you saw something that was unjust and it wasn't right. And now you want to fight for it and you want to create some sense of change or momentum. And anger is just a challenging emotion, but it's not necessarily bad. And so we only experience on average, people who are surveyed, 3 emotions a day, and our emotional literacy holds us back from moving through struggles. And the ability to not judge our emotions will help us move through struggles. Just to go, I just need to feel. I don't care what I'm feeling. I'm just going to feel right now.
Yeah, not be judged by it, right? Just to let them go. Because once you start judging those emotions, that's when they bottle back up, right? Because you can't.
Well, you judge it, because think about what you're saying, Mark. You judge it. So, Mark, for your situation, imagine if you go, well, I shouldn't be angry. Right? My spouse has every right to make a decision that they're going to make. I shouldn't be angry, but you feel anger.
Yeah.
Well, you know, sometimes you have a right to be angry. So
I definitely feel all those. Like, I want her to be happy, and if it isn't with me, then I get sad, and then I get angry. Like, well, why this have to happen? And it's just like a loop over and over and over.
Totally.
Yeah. No, this is good stuff, man. Isaiah says anger is a branch of emotions. Yeah, as long as we don't take anger further down into rage and make bad decisions that end up on the news.
Right.
That is
exactly. Unregulated anger.
Unregulated anger. Jem X is saying, reminds me of the Freemason Rage Against the Machine lyric, anger is a gift.
It can be.
Can be.
Listen, people, sometimes you have a right to be angry. If you're being abused, if you're a victim of domestic violence, you have every right to be angry about that. No one deserves to hold that power over you. You have every right to be angry about that. If you're being marginalized, if you're being oppressed, if you don't have a seat at the table because of how you look, because of your preferences in life, because of your political or religious affiliations, you have a right to be angry about that. You know, we need a culture that actually cultivates conversation and empathy and understanding so that we can bring all these beautiful ideas and philosophies to the table and we say what works in this. Because let me tell you, the world is not as black and white as we want to make it. Everybody wants to put a label over the head just so they get a sense of belonging. It's one of our internal motivators, is this social motivation to belong to something. And it's to our detriment because we're complex human beings and we do things for our own reasons. We have a spectrum of emotions. We have a spectrum of experiences and perceptions of things. And we need to have a safe space to cultivate those conversations and to process our experiences, because we experience the world through emotion first. Believe it or not, hits our limbic system, hits the amygdala. We experience the world through emotion first, and then it has to hit our prefrontal cortex, this logic center, where we have to logically decide, is that emotion appropriate to what is going on, and then decide what to do with it.
Man. Isaiah is saying, this is perfect timing. I'm angry. You haven't ridden with me lately, Joey and Adam. And you have the right to feel that way, Isaiah.
Appropriate, Isaiah.
Marty Richards out of New Zealand saying, how to deal with anger is a safe and how to deal with anger in a safe and positive way.
Oh, Marty, great question. Hey, everyone thinks anger and conflict means like a big blowout, or that you're gonna it means it's physical. You can be angry emotionally and have a conversation about it. You can literally tell your spouse, tell your kids, tell your friends, I'm angry with you. That hurt me. I don't think you understand the impact your actions had on me, and I need to articulate it to you. And I'm scared that if I do, you're going to twist my words around on me right now. And that's why I haven't opened up to you before. We need to be able to talk. Empathy is like one of the greatest gifts. We just need to be able to, like Mark, you said, hold space for people, withhold judgment of things. Just because somebody's angry now doesn't mean they'll be angry later. The studies have shown it's like when we hit fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and the biochemistry takes hold, there's some interesting things that happen. Like our blood goes from pumping 1 gallon of blood per minute to 5.
Whoa.
Think about that. Think about a gallon of milk or a gallon of water. It goes from pumping 1 to 5. And that's why our nostrils flare. And then like our hands shake and our lip quivers and we start to tremble. And then we get in this angry emotion, and it's very challenging. And then we judge it and we go, I shouldn't be angry. And now I have to stop my hands from shaking and my lip from quivering instead of letting that emotion go through. And the studies have shown that it takes 20 to 60 minutes on average to return to what they call the pre-arousal state, for when your body's aroused to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn.
Wow.
And it's
1
different
hour?
for everybody.
Whoa.
So to deal with anger in a positive way, you need to be able to talk about it and know that there's some real biochemistry that's going to happen. Because the second you talk about bottled anger, the second somebody goes, I will listen and I won't judge, and I'm not going to correct it. And you go, I'm really mad at you. I'm so mad at you. And they go, you have every right to be. Now the permission hits and the floodgates are open. You're like, damn right, I have every right to be. This is what you did to me, and it made me feel a certain way. And I don't know what to do with these emotions. And it amps up. And the other person has a responsibility to go, yeah, I can see why you would feel that way. And it might continue to amp up. And then, you know what happens? This is when in arguments, people start to subside, and then they go, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to go off on you like that. It just kind of came out because they were heard. And it's about 20 to 60 minutes on average.
Wow. Is that why sometimes it's good to, if it gets uncontrollable anger, like the lizard brain kicks in, when you say, you know what, I think I need to go for a walk.
Yeah.
Or let's come back and talk about this in a minute if you're still available.
Yeah.
Something, right? If it's
That's
getting too far.
exactly what it is, Mark. Yeah. I'm glad you brought up lizard brain. This is another thing that people get misconstrued just because their culture is so good on catchphrases. They say things like, I'm sorry, my ego got in the way. I'm gonna need to leave my ego at the door next time we talk. Well, that's bullshit. Like your ego is amoral, believe it or not. People don't realize this. Your ego is just a container. It's just a container for self. That's all it is. If you do studies on this, the ego, it holds the reins. It's the driver. There's 2 horses. The ego is the driver of the cart. There's 2 horses. One horse is the id, and the id is the reptile brain. It seeks pleasure at all costs. Doesn't matter who it hurts. So it might even seek pleasure by being angry and belittling somebody and saying things that will hurt people and turn the screw and make them feel small. And the other horse is the superego. And the superego is kind of like the moral judge with the gavel. You should or you shouldn't. You should really regulate your emotions. You shouldn't go off on them. You should feel this way. You shouldn't feel that way. And the ego, it just has to control those horses going, I got it. I want pleasure, but I can't do it at all costs. And I need to be kind of moral about it, don't I? But I'm not going to judge myself with this. And so the ego, listen, people had healthy, Mother Teresa had a big ego. Gandhi had a big ego. Jesus, big ego, healthy egos. What people get it confused with is the term egotistical, which means an inflated view of self. So you don't want to become egotistical, but by all means, bring your ego in, work on your ego, like fill your cup and make your ego healthy.
Yeah. Just control those stallions.
Yeah,
Yes.
totally.
We got these are coming in. Fire Captain 4301 says, Mark, you are in Christy in my prayer. We truly grow from the tough times. Adam, thanks for the message. Your message is truly real. Thank you, Fire Cap.
I appreciate
that. That's a goodie. Venakava. It's saying Venakava is saying a lot of our addictions are a result of us trying to avoid our emotions. We shouldn't avoid them. Just go through them and you'll find out at the end they weren't that big and scary to begin with.
Venakava. Okay, this is gold. Can we pause on here for a minute?
Yes.
Elias is dropping some gold. There's a term called numbing. It's an armor we wear for being real. There's 3 top ones: perfectionism, which is the need to be perfect, numbing, the need to avoid, which is what Venikov is talking about, and foreboding joy, this need to be guarded. Numbing is exactly what he's talking about. That's where our addictions come from. And we avoid the conversations we need to have, or we avoid feeling what we need to feel. And we could avoid that in some very prevalent ways that we all know. We might drink to excess. We might use drugs to excess. We might even overeat. But we also could overspend, or we can binge watch Netflix, or we can play video games all day because we don't want to deal with the thing that actually needs to be dealt with. So Venikov is dropping some knowledge here. There's nothing wrong with playing video games, watching Netflix, having a drink occasionally, and maybe you're using maybe you have a gummy here and there, because they're legal in certain states. But
Need
what
some
you don't
sleep.
want, yes, but what you don't want to do is do it in a pattern that keeps you avoiding. There's even something called productive procrastination, where people will get busy and they're like, oh, did you talk to that person? Did you go see your therapist? Did you go do the thing that will help you? And they go, oh, I was so busy. I had to get the house clean. I had to go grocery shop, like all the things. And that's called productive procrastination. And Venikov is right. It's our way of avoiding it. And I think he sums it up pretty well at the end. A lot of times I posted something on my IG not too long ago that says, you're not as fragile as you feel. And a lot of times we feel like we're going to break if we just engage in the thing that we need to engage with. And the truth is, many times you absolutely will not break. You're going to find your strength in it. It is scary. I'm not saying that you need to be fearless or avoid the fear. You move through the fear. You be a coward behind the shield, and you move forward and you protect yourself. And then you go, oh my God, I survived. What else can I survive? Right?
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Pushing that comfort zone, as we say.
Yeah.
That's so good. Isaiah Bernstein is saying, when I'm angry, I have to look at where that's coming from, or I call someone and tell them I'm angry, and then call two others and ask them how they're doing.
I believe this with Isaiah. Isaiah is one of the best humans. I love it. Isaiah will call. I know we've all experienced this. Isaiah will call people regularly just to check in with them. Talk about being interested and not interesting. Like, that's the heart of Isaiah. And I love what he said there. Like, when he's angry, Isaiah obviously has some ways that he can cope with that anger. And I think that's wonderful.
Yes. Yeah. That's so good, Isaiah. And yes, those calls are always great. I always
They're
wonder,
always great.
is he asking me how I'm doing, or is he okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
In both. In both.
It's both and. It's both and, right? And by the way,
Doesn't-
thank you, Manny. I love normalizing seeing a therapist or a psychologist or your counselor. We should all do that. There should be no shame. If any one of you are listening to this right now and you see somebody regularly and you're scared to talk about it, you're going to find out who your friends really are very quickly. And if you're scared to go see somebody, please go see them, because you are responsible for your life. You live and lead at full choice. Go do everything you can to be the best person that you possibly can. And let your so-called friends fall away if they're not down with it, or they're going to ridicule you for it. You make room for other people.
Right. Yeah. And psychologists are like, they're professionals. They're there
Exactly.
to
Yeah,
help
they're
out, just like a
trained.
trainer.
The good ones are. The good ones are.
Yes, and that's another good point. Say you get to one and you don't feel like they're being helpful. There is nothing wrong with choosing another one after you've
Thank
gone
you,
a
Mark.
handful of times.
I appreciate you saying that. Listen, you got to treat it like friends. The therapists aren't there to be your friends. They're there to be your professionals in life, and you're going to feel rapport with them. But Mark is 100% right. Same way you choose your friends, you would not continue to hang around with people who don't see you. So if your therapist you don't feel like is doing what they need to do, or your counselor or your coach, bounce.
Yeah.
Bounce. Send them a message and find someone who is. There are great qualified people out there. I know they are. I work with them.
Yeah. And with today's age of being on Zoom, you can have whatever education therapist of person you'd like. You don't have to be in your area anymore.
100%.
Fantastic.
100%. Yeah.
Thank you, AT&T.
I love that.
Let's talk a little bit about now let's try to like grab everybody whether it's loss of something big or something, everyone's going to experience some kind of loss or hurdle or struggle, especially as we move into the holidays. And I think the timing on this is perfect because holidays are the roughest.
Yeah.
It gets dark earlier. Everyone's happy. You're supposed to be happy. Well, everything's great. But I think, is it true, or maybe I'm inflating this? Are the rates of suicide higher during the holidays? Do we know this?
100%. Yep.
100%. So as we all move into the holidays and whatever struggle that we are going through, there is a moment when we have the impact, and then there's a moment of I feel stuck. I don't know if I should reach out to friends, keep this to myself, or
Mhm.
just be here for who knows how long. What do we say to the people that are in that mode, that they're stuck, but the
Mhm.
loneliness, the depression, the overwhelmness, the tiredness is there?
Yeah.
What should they be trying to do?
I just want to encourage all of you. We're not meant to do life alone. Absolutely 100% need to reach out. When it comes to this idea of purpose in your life, like your ultimate concern, the thing that organizes everything that you do in life, when it comes to your purpose, even if you don't know what it is yet, when it comes to that, you have no purpose outside of connection. That's how hardwired we are for connection with other
Wow.
people. And I get that not everybody is in a place. I feel really blessed to have people like Mark and Joey, who I can feel close with. I feel I can actually have a real honest conversation with about life, and that they would keep my confidences. They're not going to put it on social media. That if they're riding with other people or hanging out with other people, they're going to be like, hey, you know what Adam told me? On these things. We need safe spaces to talk. If you don't have that, I'm so sorry. It does exist. And please be persistent for your own mental health and well-being to seek those sources out. It might take a while, but your life is absolutely worth doing that, because during the holidays, we do feel alone. We start to look at our finances. We start to look at our relational equity with people and where we are in our partnerships and our families and people who are here or not here anymore. And for as much as like the commercials want to make us feel really good, some of us are working through struggles and emotional challenges during those times. And we can have that dichotomy. We can feel good, but we can also feel sad at the same time with
Yeah.
those things. And I will give you some tips. So this is part of what's called emotional agility. If you want to really do a deep dive in emotional agility, I suggest the book by Susan David, Emotional Agility. She's great. I got to sit in a coaching class with her, and she was really, really awesome. But there are some things that you can do. The first thing, this is for everybody, with any struggle that you face, first thing that you can do is name it. And what
Mm,
that means is, I'm not saying like, hey, call your struggle Joey or Mark, like I'm not saying that, right? Like what I'm saying is you have to get very, very specific about naming your struggle. So Mark, for you, for example, I know we've talked, so I'll just talk in general terms about this. But if I were to say, like, with your divorce and what you're going through, like, I would say, well, Mark, what are you feeling right now? Because you could say, Adam, I'm angry and all this stuff like that. And that is a legitimate emotion. But if I were to pointedly just ask you, well, what are you feeling, or what's going through your head? And you go, I'm heartbroken.
yeah.
Well, that's
That's
something we can deal with,
the name of
right?
it. Yeah.
I can't deal
Focus
with
on.
your divorce. Okay. But I can't deal with, oh, your heart's breaking. Well, that takes time. We both know that. And you're going to need connection to get through that on things. A really good example I use, not to get too heavy on the emotional level, is you take one of the biggest fears that most people have, which is public speaking. And let's say Joey and I both have a fear of public speaking, and we're both scared to speak in public. And it would be wrong for people to go, oh, they have the same fear. We don't know enough. We haven't actually named it. Saying I'm scared to speak in public doesn't really name it. If I say, Joey, dig deeper, what is your fear about speaking in public? And let's say Joey goes, I'm self-conscious about the way I look. I'm worried about going up there and people making fun of how I look. I know what I want to say. I'm worried about how I look. And let's say I go, I'm not worried about how I look, but what if I forget my words and people laugh at me and I come across as stupid? Well, now we've named it. And that's something we can address. Okay, Joey, if you're worried about how you're going to look, what makes you feel good? What's your best outfit? What's something you've always wanted? Do you need to go get a haircut? What do you need to feel really good about yourself going into that public speaking session? And for me, it'd be like, well, if you're not worried about how you look, then are you studying? Can you have note cards? Do you know your content? And we work with that. So when it comes to emotional agility and some of these struggles during the holidays, name it. Name whatever it is. I'm lonely. I don't have friends. I'm single. This isn't how I thought it would be. I feel betrayed. I'm angry. Whatever that is, deal with that. Name it. Now, this is a really hard thing. You have to accept it. And this is a
Mm,
really, really difficult thing for people. You have to accept it, because the goal is not always to feel good. I know we want to, but the path to feeling good could be longer than you realize. So you might just have to accept. Let's use Mark's example in this. He's coming up on the holidays now, and things are going to look very different for him. Mark, you have to accept a certain level of the holidays are going to look different. It doesn't feel good, but I accept that it's going to look different because it's out of my control otherwise. I
yeah.
can't bring my marriage back together. It's not what's going to happen. That's out of the cards. So I have to accept that it will look different, and I'll even accept that that might not feel as good as I want it to right now, but I'm
Yeah.
on my way, right?
Right. Yeah.
The other thing you do is you step out of it. This is very difficult. Emotions are like a backseat driver. Sometimes they like to hijack the driver's seat. And that's when fear takes over, and fear will stop you from doing what you need to do. But try and step out of it. And a good way to do that, those of you who have therapists may know this technique, is be kind to yourself. A really good technique is to look at yourself as if you're a child and speak to the child version of you, because
Oh,
we're
that's a
much
good idea.
kinder with the child version of ourselves.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So,
And
like
then
Mark, for you, for example, if you had thoughts going through your head, like maybe I could have done something, to keep my marriage intact, or maybe it's me, maybe I was overbearing in some way or too much of something. Well, that's the adult talking to the adult. If you talk to a little kid, Mark, and you were looking at yourself like you would your sons, you'd be so much kinder. You would go, "No, Mark, you did everything to the best of your ability. You tried. Of course, you made some mistakes, but you got this, buddy.
yeah,
You'll get there."
way different. It's not that tough love mentality. It's
Yeah.
more of that, yeah, emotional
Right.
connection. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And the last thing that most people will not do is, it's really good just to act into your values. Avoid becoming consumed by the current situation. And we have three different types of values. We have core values, we have chosen values, and we have societal values or social values. Things that we call them the should values. Your core values, the only way you're really going to know that is to work with a professional. You can work with myself, work with your therapist and such. But it's good to dig to your core values, because you can't live a fulfilling life that doesn't honor your core values. And so a lot of people feel lost because they don't know how to go through the day and display the things that are most valuable to them, because they don't even know what they value. They know what other people value, and so they try and live through that.
Man, navigating as a human being is very difficult, but we are
Yeah.
getting some great tools here from Adam Mock on how to do so.
Yeah.
GemX is actually asking, Adam, do you do remote coaching or mentoring?
I do. I do it globally. I have the privilege of doing this for around the world, just on Zoom. So if anybody wants or is interested in having, let's say, what I call just a consultation, like a 30-minute free consultation to find out, I don't assume I'm right for everybody. That's just the truth. I may not be right for you, but I like to just hop on a phone call with people first and see what they're going through, to see if I can be any assistance to them. The truth of the matter is, people actually know what they want. It's just covered up. They need help uncovering that. So if I am a fit for you, if I feel I'm a fit for you and you feel I'm a fit for you after a consultation, then yeah, I do remote coaching, and we hop on a Zoom call, and we have at it. And I absolutely love, love, love what I do.
And I'll put your contact information in the show notes. But for those of you who are listening on Spotify or iTunes, it's Adam Mock is it Adam Mock at adammock.com?
Well, and my email is just adam@adammock.com, but you can just go to adammock.com and you can find out all the info on me. And there's a contact page on there that you can go to if you want to engage with me and set up a consultation.
On adammock.com.
And some people DM me on Instagram, and that's cool too. If I'm not following you, and I apologize, I'm kind of really oblivious to this. If people follow me and I don't follow you back, it's absolutely really not a personal thing. It's just like, if you've already engaged me, we have a sense of engagement. So it's like, okay, but I do try and check my DMs. So I do not take, Manny's saying, do I take HMO and PPOs? I don't. I don't, because I'm not a therapist. I'm not a licensed clinician. I am a coach. I'm a leadership coaching specialist. I serve as the executive director of leadership development for Triple Threat. I get contracted by them. I have my own private practice on things. So I'm not regulated like clinicians are. So I don't accept any type of insurance.
Gotcha. There you go. There you go. And then I guess lastly, let's close it out on, if it's okay, Adam, to have you for a little bit longer. Just want to squeeze as much juice out of this as I
Anything you
can.
want, man.
This is so good. So we talked about loss in many different ways. We talked about it in relationship. We talked about it in actual physical loss of somebody that they passed away.
Mhm.
We used the concept of losing a job. For the folks who, and I mean, just thinking, is it the 7 degrees of separation? In my mind, I'm thinking already of like 3 people who have lost family members moving
Mhm.
into the holidays.
Yeah.
For that kind of grief, in our very own Joey Yates, I don't know if Joey, you want to share at all, but if you do, Joey, please do. But what's the best way to kind of tee up moving forward after the loss of a loved one?
Mm. Joey, do you want to chime in on that? Do you want to share what's
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah, I can fill you guys in. I lost my mother last year in wow, it's still hard. I didn't think this would be hard. I lost my mom last year in July. Um, a few weeks after we put her down, actually a few days after she was put down, my dad got terminally ill.
Mm.
And let's let's see, July, September, I lost my mother-in-law.
Wow.
She died due to dementia. And then my dad passed away December, about 2 days before his 80th birthday.
Wow.
Yeah, last year was no fun at all,
Mm.
but made it through it due to a lot of, good friends and stayed positive. But it
Mhm.
hurts. Mark knows. One of the roughest times for me is being alone in the car. I don't know why. That's when a lot of it comes back to me because I guess I'm
Mhm.
not busy. I'm just kind of mindlessly driving down the
Yeah.
road.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll show up at rides and we'll have cried all the way there. Get
Mm.
out of the car, put the glasses and the helmet on, and I have no worries, no problems. They're all gone. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Thanks for sharing that, Joey. That's hard for all of you listening. That's just so real. Those are three major losses. Joey's mom, Joey's mother-in-law, and then his dad. Right,
yeah,
all within the span of a year. And Joey, that makes sense to me. Then in the car when things are quiet and you're left to your own thoughts, that's when it would come because we're not meant to bottle things up. I mean, we are designed to actually feel. There was a study. There's a Dr. Demasiato. I just want to share some with y'all. You're unlocking stuff, Joey. So thank you for this.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
We can't even make decisions without our limbic system, where our emotions are. They did a study on this. It's interesting. People with damaged limbic systems, and they asked people to make like decisions on things. And you would think, like, even the most logical people are like, no, I make logical decisions. Well, you logic your way towards the decision, but the actual decision making lights up the part of your brain that's responsible for your emotions. And so we're not meant to bottle up our emotions. We're actually meant to use our emotions as informers. And they're powerful informers. It tells us what's going on. And it's actually tied to our intuition, which is a whole other podcast. Did a really wonderful, was in a wonderful coaching workshop recently with someone talking about the intuition of coaching. It's just mind blowing. But Joy, I'm not surprised when you're alone, when you're at your safest, because we're most vulnerable when we're alone. That's when we can feel the most real. And maybe it's a car, and maybe a song came on, or you're listening to some talk radio, and somebody said something, and the memories come back, and it triggers us, and then we can't bottle it, and we have to grieve because grief is love looking for a home to come full circle. You had three big losses, Joey,
Yeah.
and even in December with your dad, you said your dad was 80, right?
Yeah, he missed his 80th birthday by 2 or 3 days.
Man, missed his 80th birthday. So there's a sense of like a milestone that was missed
Yeah,
out on.
yeah,
To get back to Mark's question, is a great example on this. Going through the holidays, I would say feel it. This is what's hard, people. You have to allow yourself to feel it. And my greatest hope is that you do have safe people to feel it around. And if you don't, then do what Joey does. Have a good cry in the car. I literally had a client this week show up on a call and they want to tell me something. They said, whew, a week ago, Adam, I would have been in big tears. And they were struggling to hold back tears. And I just said to them over and over, you're not done crying. And that's okay. And if you don't want to do it in front of me, do it as soon as you get off of this call, because that's just your body's way of processing things. And Joe, you had three big hits. That's not going to resolve itself in a year,
yeah,
especially now when the holidays come up. It's just going to remind you of the things that you don't have, the people you cared about that aren't here. So I think the natural response, Mark, is to allow people just to feel it. So I would say some things you can do is create some ceremonies, talk and have a good cry around the dinner table with people who love those people who aren't here anymore, and share their memories and honor them, and have a good laugh over the stupidity and the jokes and things like that. And even Mark, for you, in a divorce sense, you can do the same thing if you have kids, or you just want to call up a friend and go, I just want to talk about how great it was at one point, because I laugh about it and I don't want those memories to become tarnished or tainted into something bad. You know, I could still be hurt with how it is right now, but I can still laugh and celebrate and have a warm feeling in my chest over the times that were good. And that's really as simple as it gets, because it's going to take time and distance to heal, or at least to evolve the wounds. Time and distance, not just time, but like time away from certain things, away from certain songs, you know. I had a client recently say something to me where they said something about like, well, this event was traumatic to me. And they go, that's kind of exaggerated. I don't know if it was traumatic. I was like, if it's traumatic, it's traumatic. Who am I to tell you what's traumatizing to you or not? You know, let's assume it was traumatic. We have to deal with that trauma, because if we don't, nothing else that we build on is gonna stand. You know, we have to deal with what you view as traumatic.
So Joey, when you're driving in the car by yourself, I can't call you anymore to distract you.
Well, Mark's
so good. He always knows when I'm in the car alone, so he'll call me, and it's not as bad anymore, Mark.
Mark is one of the safest people to open up to. I do want to tell you, as long as we're talking about this, it was an interesting study done. I love when neuroscientists like track like the pulses of the brain. So Susan David, who wrote Emotional Agility, and I was sitting in her workshop, she talked about this thing called fusion. And I want to encourage everybody to avoid this. Even though 7% of communication are the actual words you say, your internal dialogue is very powerful. So when we're going through challenging emotions, you know, people will say things like, I'm angry, I'm pissed off, I'm sad, I'm anxious, I'm really worried.
Mm.
When we say I am, literally those words, I am or I'm, whatever precedes it, if we say it enough times, starts to attach to our sense of identity.
Ooh.
And so what we really start to say to ourselves isn't just I'm angry. What we're really saying is I am anger. I am sadness. I am anxiety. And so the shift you just have to make is to understand that your emotions are like passing clouds. I think we talked about this on the last podcast, Joey. Your emotions only last 7 to 15 seconds. That's not me telling you an average. This is just track. This is just science. 7 to 15 seconds. They attach to a thought. And if they last longer than that, it's because the thought, the negative narrative, is causing the emotions to ruminate. I am not saying that when somebody passes away, you're not going to feel sad after 15 seconds. That's ridiculous. Some emotions endure because the thoughts are good and you miss people and you're grieving. So that makes sense. This is just an average, 7 to 15 seconds. And so what Susan David would say is, instead of saying I'm angry, I'm sad, I am anxious, and it attaches to your identity, you simply go and you say, I notice that I'm feeling angry. Like watching a car go by, or watching birds fly by, or the clouds pass by. I notice that I'm sad today. I notice that I'm feeling anxious about this situation. And that keeps it detached from you. It keeps it as something that you are observing in terms of how your body and brain are designed to work. And that's something that you can get a better handle of. But if you constantly tell yourself that I am anger, I am sadness, I am anxiety, it'll start to attach to your sense of identity, and you can start to live that out.
Wow.
That goes back to your video on is it the rice?
Yes, the rice. Yeah. What you say to rice is pretty crazy.
For the folks who don't know what we're talking about there, Adam, can you fill them in real quick on this? Because this is this still ongoing study, or you checked in?
Actually, I've had the rice for 4 years. I did the last video 2 years in. In short, Dr. Emoto did a study with rice, 3 jars of rice. He kept them uncovered. The rice wasn't cooked. He poured water into it. And to one jar, he said, I love you. To another jar, he said, you're an idiot. And to the third jar, he neglected it. And he did that for 30 days. And what was interesting is 30 days in, the jar that he said, I love you to, fermented and started to smell very sweet. And the jar he called an idiot started to mold. And the jar he neglected started to rot, and it was pretty pungent. And I was really fascinated by it. It's like, I got to try this. So I did it a little different. I cooked the rice because I'm half Asian. The Asian background, I got rice every day.
Already cooked, yeah.
Already cooked, right? But I cooked. Guilty. I cooked fresh rice. I had 3 jars, exactly the same, sterilized, never opened, never used for anything before. Never cracked open. Opened up all those jars, put 5 tablespoons of cooked rice in each jar. And this is funny because I have this video online and people are like, this lacks all the scientific credibility of everything. And it's like, I don't claim to be a scientist, people. I'm just sharing the results of my experiment with you all. But use your own judgment on it. But for for 30 days, I held up a jar of rice. And by the way, people think it was sequential. Like the first jar that I put the rice in is the love jar. And that's not necessarily true. I just put rice in all 3 jars and close them. I labeled one love, one hate, and I labeled one neutral or neglect. And there was no rhyme or reason to those jars. So for 30 days, I would take out the love jar and I would try and pour every sense of emotion towards this love jar. I would tell it, I love you. Oh, you're the best. Like, I couldn't wait to talk to you about my day, like how I would feel about my wife or my kids or my closest friends. And then the hate jar, I would throw every profanity at that jar, every ounce of anger, every disappointment I ever had. It got every F bomb I could think of towards the jar.
F you, gas
Yeah, like
prices.
the gas prices, like the gas prices. And the neglect jar just left alone. And I put them all equidistance apart up in a cupboard, away from heat, away from light. And for 30 days, I did that. And I kept those jars after the 30 days. After 30 days, I stopped doing that. Within a week, the love jar was fine. The hate jar started to mold green.
Whoa.
The neglect jar started to mold black.
Ooh.
And even though I didn't keep engaging with them, I kept the jars for 2 years and I put a video out. All you have to do is search like rice experiment, Adam Mock online. I'm sure it'll pop out. And in 2 years, the love jar, even though I stopped interacting with it, continued to stay white. The hate jar was browning.
Wow.
The neglect jar looked like dark soy sauce all over everything. Like there's a significant difference. It's 4 years later. I still have the jars. The love jar is starting to yellow. The hate jar is darkening. The neglect jar is like darkest brown black on it. And regardless of everyone's like, well, this is bullshit or whatever. Look, people, take what you want from it. What I take from it is this. I have nothing to lose by talking to myself better. Simply by talking to myself better in my head, not calling myself an idiot or stupid, or beating myself up over mistakes, which we all make, or failures, which are just a part of success, but talking more healthy in terms of, well, tomorrow's a new day. Mark, I love one of the best things you ever shared with me was Win the Day. And you break it up into quarters from 6 to 9 and 9 to 12 and 12 to 3 and 3 to 6. And if you have to, you go into overtime. And that tells me if I failed the first quarter, I can rally and maybe I get the second quarter. And if not, I'm going to have lunch and I'm going to come back at halftime and I'm going to have a comeback on this. Right. And all that Rice told me was, not only am I going to speak as well as I can to myself, I'm going to speak as well as I can to as many people as possible. I'm not always successful. I'm a human being. I have bad days, but yeah, that was a Rice experiment. What you think affects how you feel, and that affects your behavior. And it seems to affect Rice.
Wow, that's so cool. That's crazy. MTV Manny says McDonald's must put lots of love in their food because it never goes bad.
A lot of love, quote unquote, preservatives. So good job, Manny.
Just don't get the grimace shake. We've all seen what happens to those people.
Yeah. Venikava's talking about plants. Look up studies on this. Look up studies on ice crystals. It doesn't matter what language it is. It has everything to do with the intention. It's mind-blowing. And I'll tell you this. You could sit there and get uber logical and go, well, this isn't scientific. Or you can just simply go, what do I have to lose by just being kinder to myself and people?
Right.
It definitely does feel better when you talk to yourself in a loving way versus a bad way. That's for sure. And I have seen some of those studies where they've done it with frozen ice, like water that's turning into ice.
Yeah.
The crystals actually form differently.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Mark's talking about, like, it doesn't matter. Like if you throw profanities at ice crystals in any language, or like water that's being frozen, if you berate it, the ice crystals that form are very chaotic. But if you're loving towards it, it's almost like snowflakes. They're symmetrical. It's really fascinating study.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Truck pimp
to their enduro bike.
My enduro bike.
Kind of your bikes, right? They gotta take you down the
definitely.
trails.
Come on, baby. We got this trail. Let's do it. We got this. Adam. Sorry, Joey. Go ahead.
I had to rename one of my bikes.
Joey's
bike was named Grimace. Well, I don't know. Did you still name him? When? So
the purple one-eyed flying purple people eater bike.
Yeah, that was Grimace, and Grimace gave me nothing but problems at the beginning. It wasn't the fault of any. It was just random bad luck situations. And
this is prior to the Grimace shake even coming back out. Yeah. Joey just decided to name it Grimace because he's like, that's kind of like me, kind of like, I like to fool around here and kind of poke fun and just innocent, So we named his bike Grimace, and we've had flats, ruptured your wheel,
Um,
broken rim, you lost your crank.
Lost the crank. Yeah. It would
Take it
attack
from
the crank.
Joey. Take it from Joey. You might have to change the narrative around your bike.
So it works on bikes too, folks.
Yeah.
It does work on bikes. And MTV Drop In, I saw you pop in there. Good to see you, brother. He says, if I talk to a gas tank, I wonder if it'll help me get the get the gas
Well,
prices.
old school, they would just siphon it from somebody else's tank. So
Right. Before the old locks on the gas tank happen. MTV Drop In's also saying this is what CBT is aimed at. Yeah, talking about what you're talking about there, Adam. He says, yo, like the topic.
yeah,
Yes.
CBT, for those who don't know, not to be confused with CBD, like gummies and stuff. CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. It's essentially just rewiring the thoughts in your head so that you can feel better and you can do better. It's very, very effective.
Yes. And I like this. Here's somebody that I look up to in our community, Emmanuel Jimenez. He is a Purple Heart veteran. This dude is a beast. I was actually out on the trails when he broke his collarbone, and the dude hiked all the way down to the parking lot. Fine.
Wow.
Crazy. In immense pain. But it was just like, I was talking to him the whole time. But he said, Manuel says, since coming back from Iraq, I've always struggled with survivor's guilt and self-worth. Like, I feel like I lost a cause. But I figured if I'm lost, I might as well try and help someone else.
What a beautiful
Dude.
way to reframe that for yourself. Survivor's guilt is very real. And he's saying so they aren't lost too. So the ability to live for other people. Survivor's guilt is very, very real, and it's complex. We don't want to lose our friends and loved ones, and we don't want to come back and feel like it should have been us over them. And that survivor's guilt is very real. I'm glad to hear that you're trying to reframe that so you can live purposefully for the people you lost.
Yes, definitely so. I love the mindset on that. Control. He's controlling what he can control there.
Controlling what he can control. Exactly. It's not always easy.
I love that. Adam, anything that you want to say to kind of wrap this up in a bow? I'm also thinking we talked a lot about so many great things to help people get through struggle. And the struggle bus is in fifth gear and cruising down the 15 freeway. And we're all hopping on and off it as we go. But for the folks that maybe are thinking this is the last time I'm going to ride this damn struggle bus, moving in the holidays, if they're feeling that far gone that they're going to end it, we always talk about one more day. Hey, give us one more day. Give yourself one more day. But Adam, how would you like to maybe wrap this up in a bow by a message to everyone, and then especially to those folks?
I'll just tell you what Mark said. Please, from the bottom of my heart, give yourself one more day. You're worthy of that gift. And if one more day seems like too much, give yourself a half a day. Give yourself 5 hours. Give yourself an hour. Give yourself 5 minutes more. And keep stepping forward just 1% better. I was suicidal when I was 23, and I share it very openly, and I won't go into full details right now because we're at the end of the podcast. I would have never imagined where my life would take me, and the people that I would cross paths with, the people that would impact me, like Joey and Mark in this mountain biking community, and even my clients. God, I have some incredible clients that I just adore, and I know they hire me as the coach, but I really hope if any of them are listening, how much I get from them, how much empowerment and strength I get from them. You don't know where your life will take you. Today is absolutely not forever. It's just not forever. Please hang in there and reach out and get help. Your life is worth getting help for, and definitely please give it one more day.
Love it. Adam Mock, ladies and gentlemen, if you are needing to reach out and you want to connect with Adam Mock, please do so. You can find him at his website, adammock.com. And then your email, Adam, again, is adam@adammock.com.
Mark knows all of it. And if you want to hit me on Instagram, it's adammock.lcs for leadership coaching specialist, adammock.lcs. And I want to end with this, you all, just as encouragement. Hope is a beautiful thing. Hope is not a strategy, though. Hope is just fuel. What helps your hope grow are the steps you take towards getting better. And you deserve to take those steps for yourself. The struggle is very real. I know we say that, kind of laugh at it as a joke. Struggles are real, challenges are real, and they are inevitable, but they are temporary and not permanent. They are situational and not pervasive. Try not to personalize it. And please continue to rise ever upward. There are people you have yet to meet and experiences you have yet to have will be some of the greatest moments of your entire life.
I love that. Yes, your exit and the stop for your struggle bus is coming, and you'll be able to get off that sucker. And if you look left to the right, you might see me on there with you for a little bit. So you're
Let's
not
go,
alone.
Mark. Let's
You're
go.
not alone. Love you guys. See you all out on the trail. Adam Mock, love you, bud. Joey Yates, as always.
Peace
Thank
and
you
love,
so
everyone.
much. We'll see you guys soon.